First Kings chapter 19, verses 1 through 8. What do you do when you feel like giving up? So to understand 1 Kings 19, we need to understand what happened in chapter 18, right? So Elijah, he just experienced one of the greatest victories in the entire Bible. He stood alone against 450 prophets. He called down fire from heaven. The nation witnessed God's power. It was a mountaintop moment. The kind of moment most people think should lead directly to peace. But that's not what happens. After all of that, Queen Jezebel sends Elijah a message. And she basically says, by this time tomorrow, you are dead. That's it. One message, one threat, and Elijah runs. Why? Because exhaustion, it can change how we see things. A rested person will hear that, and the threat, and he'll remember the fire from heaven, right? An exhausted person hears that, and he forgets the miracle. So have you ever noticed how different life feels when you are tired and when you are exhausted? The same problem feels bigger, the same obstacles feel heavier, and the same challenges feel impossible. Sometimes the battle isn't that God has left. Sometimes you are just simply running on empty. So the Bible says Elijah goes into the wilderness and he sits under a broom tree. Then he prays. Something very shocking is what he says. He says, "It is enough, Lord, take my life." This is Elijah, right? The prophet who called down fire, the man who stood before kings, the man who God just used so powerfully. And I think many people need to hear this. If you feel like giving up, it does not mean you are a bad Christian. Elijah wasn't weak and he wasn't depleted. There is a difference. When Elijah says it is enough, he's saying, I'm tired, I'm overwhelmed, I don't know how much more I can carry. And maybe you're listening right now, you know exactly what that feels like. The grief, the waiting, the disappointment, the pressure, the constant battle. You've reached a place where you're wondering if you have anything left. So here's my favorite part. God does not respond with a lecture. He doesn't say, Elijah, have more faith. He doesn't say, Elijah, stop complaining. He doesn't say, Elijah, you're overreacting. Instead, he sends an angel. And the angel says, Elijah, get up and eat. That's it. Food, water, rest. Sometimes we want a deep theological explanation, but God just gives Elijah lunch. And why is that? Because God understands some things that we often forget. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and you cannot run forever without rest. You cannot fight every battle without being replenished. Some of you don't need another motivational quote. You need to rest. Some of you don't need another lecture. You need to stop trying to carry things God never asked you to carry. Some of you are not failing. You're just exhausted. So the angel tells Elijah, get up and eat. For the journey is too much for you. And I love that verse too, because God acknowledges reality. The journey was too much for Elijah. And sometimes the season that you are walking through is too much for you. The good news is that God never expects you to carry it alone. So what if your exhaustion isn't evidence that you failed? What if it is evidence that you've been carrying more than you were meant to? So hit me up in the comment.